there is an element that we need to go in. We need to go in and down.
Okay.
We need to descend to ascend.
Hmm.
And so part of that is going into the womb or the energy of your womb,
Mm-hmm.
into the sacral chakra, the root chakra, the lower part of our body,
Mm-hmm.
bringing awareness to these parts, because this is where we also carry a lot of wounding from our lineage, mother, grandmother, great grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
but also the womb is like the energetic trunk drawer. And
Mm.
this is the home of your sexual energy, right? So coming into the womb, you can begin to clear a lot and become aware of a lot. But a lot of us are kind of living in the mind, especially as women. We're living up here, we're living in the heart, but there is that necessity to descend into the womb to deeper know yourself and have a deeper understanding of yourself.
Hello, y'all. Welcome back to That's What He Said. I'm your host, Natalie, and today's episode is with Alina Camargo, who is absolutely incredible. I'm going to try to summarize what this episode is about the best I can, but to be honest, it's so deep and expansive that you really just have to see it for yourself. Like, if you do anything this week, watch or listen to this episode in its entirety, especially if you're a woman. So, Alina is the better half of Kevin Pascoe, who I did an episode with back in season 1, and he was incredible. And I was like, I have to speak to this woman that is, his female counterpart. And she exceeded all my expectations of what I thought she was. I mean, this episode was literally, I was like sweating by the end of it because her energy is just so incredibly powerful, and she has a way of igniting energy in you and in the conversation. It was so good. Um, Literally, when I was editing it, I got goosebumps like 30 times throughout while watching it back. It's just so good. So, in the beginning, she talks about her story, experiencing a painful childhood and in her teens and early 20s, abusing alcohol, partying, using substances, and through death, experiencing a radical spiritual awakening that's led her to where she is now, which is essentially being a healer. She does work with women, being an empowerment coach, a Reiki healer, all kinds of things, working with Kambo, which we talk about what that is. It's a healing medicine that's from nature. She does a lot of healing work with women about their sexuality, which is a big part of our conversation today. The most interesting thing that I learned from her was how our quote unquote sexual energy as a woman has almost nothing to do with the act of sex. We go back into history and talk about Jesus. Alina loves Jesus. She grew up in the church. She also talks about Mary Magdalene. I would say that was my second biggest takeaway, was when she mentioned these sort of unspoken stories about the women of the Bible. What happened there? Why don't we hear about these women, specifically Mary Magdalene being Jesus's female counterpart? So that was really cool, really interesting. She has a book recommendation there for you. We even get into witchcraft, which that was the funnest part of the conversation for me, and talking about what are witches? What is witchcraft? There's good and there's evil, and what is it? There's a common theme throughout about connecting with our body, and how that's really the foundation for all other forms of emotional and spiritual healing. Cleansing the body, connecting to it, connecting to our womb, our energy, our intuition, and being able to use the body to facilitate all of this healing that we all desperately need to be doing. Towards the end, I asked her a very special question. I asked her, what would you say to single women out there who want what you have, who want the type of love and relationship that you have with Kevin? And her answer was, it really pulled at my heartstrings. It was perfect. It was the perfect, most compassionate, honest, heartfelt answer. So thank you for that, Alina. On top of all this, her voice is just like ASMR. It's so soothing. It's so relaxing to listen to. I hope you enjoy. Right now, before you forget, click the thumbs up button if you are on YouTube, like this episode, hit that bell button, subscribe to my channel. And if you are on Spotify, please leave a rating for the show. Comment below your thoughts on the episode. I want to hear from you guys. And don't forget to share the show. Let's find out what she said. Alina Camargo, welcome to That's What He Said. I'm super excited to have you. I'm like actually a little bit obsessed with you because I started following you whenever Kevin, your boyfriend, did my podcast a while back. It's probably been at least a year or so. So for everyone watching, Kevin Pascoe did an episode a while back in season 1. It was called What is masculinity and how do I get it? So we talked all about masculinity. He was amazing. And I was like, I need to know who this woman is that he is like with that's giving him this wisdom. And so I followed you and just kind of been following along your journey the past like year-ish. And you're super interesting. You have a very magnetic presence, even just through social media, through the phone. So I'm really excited to learn from you and hear about your story and everything like that. So tell us kind of who you are and what has happened in your life that's led you to the you're doing and just kind of like who you are today.
Yes. So, hello for those listening. My name is Alina Camargo, and I am actually a sex and empowerment coach for women, also a Reiki master and a Kambo practitioner and retreat facilitator. Basically, my whole thing is really supporting women to be in their power sexually, physically, emotionally. And this is something that's very important to me because I know what it's like to be extremely disempowered. And basically, telling a bit of my story, I come from a pretty broken family, like I'm sure a lot of us have, right? The family dynamics, especially for our generation, were not that great. And so happy for those who had both parents present. But
Yes.
yeah, I grew up, I'm also Hispanic, so there's that element too. I grew up in a massive Latin family. Parents divorced very young, and my mom's side of the family was very broken. Like I witnessed domestic violence, addiction. I was really never like safe as a child, except with my dad. There was the polarity of like my dad was a very strong, stable pillar for me, and his family, they were still crazy, don't get me wrong, but they were a bit more stable
Hmm.
and more healthy in a way. And so my dad was also in the military, so he was always gone. So my sense of safety would come and go, and it was very much attached to my dad. When I was 12, my mom actually, she got arrested and got taken to jail for a while. And a few months before that, my dad got shot in Afghanistan.
Oh, wow.
And he's still with us. He's still alive and well, but he's paralyzed from the neck down.
Mm.
So as a child, my only sense of safety was completely stripped from me. And I remember in that moment at just 12 years old, growing up super fast. Like I remember I
Hmm.
went to Walmart and I stole some red dye and I dyed my hair red. And I just remember I was like, it's time. And it was just anarchy. Like I
Yeah.
was very rebellious as a child. And I got into substances because watching my mother cope and my grandmother, they were both alcoholics, watching them cope with life was just drinking. So I'm like, you
Hmm.
know what? That's what I'm gonna do. I started smoking weed at 12 years old, and I really just numbed myself from all the pain that I experienced as a child and very disassociated. And I realize now what a superpower that is, honestly. And I'm very grateful for those times because I survived, right?
Hmm.
I survived a lot. And now coming into the embodiment and coming into this empowerment mode, I'm like, okay, now I want to thrive.
Yeah.
So I really don't like to focus on how bad that time of my life was or how I did the wrong things. When people
Hmm.
are surviving and coping, Like you really will do whatever it takes. And I want to honor that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. What a
Yeah.
story. So around like around what age would you say you started to like have an awareness and start to heal? How old are you?
I'm 29.
Okay, okay. I'm 31, so we're close.
Yeah.
Your story resonates too, especially having like two very split homes. I actually several years ago when I was like in a spout of therapy, we had to work through, I had sort of like a split identity of like because I had one home that was felt very unstable and chaotic and confusing and emotionally weird, and then my dad was like the pillar of like safety and consistency, like this, when I know what to expect every single day. So I kind of had these two sides to myself. Then it was very confusing to who am I? I grew up with this and I grew up with that, and those are so opposite. So who am I and what am I attracted to and what do I want? And so I had to kind of blend the two sides of my upbringing to figure out who I really am. So I understand totally where you come from. But I'm curious, around what age did you start to become aware and work through these things?
Well, I feel like it happened in such a sharp way. My mom actually passed away in 2019. I was 20,
Oh,
and that was literally like a day to night awakening where it's like my whole brain turned on and I was like, okay, now's my opportunity. I have to do something or else I'm going to go down the same path.
mm,
Because I was very much on that trajectory. I really tried to learn a lot from my mom, even before then, of what not to do. But it's hard when you see patterns, you just emulate that
for
without even
sure.
noticing that you
Mhm.
repeat the things that your parents did.
Yeah.
And so it took me about a year to really ground into what I needed and also to accept the fact that I needed to go on this deep healing journey. And for those into astrology, I have a lot of Scorpio in my chart in the 12th house. So
Mm-hmm.
that means that my whole life is really much built on the foundation of death and rebirth, and also the subconscious mind and the unseen realms. So I started working with a life coach who I met on Instagram,
Mm.
and she really helped me to do inner child healing, the masculine feminine polarity work, and really coming into balance with myself because I was obviously in my masculine energy because I had to in order to be and feel safe in my world.
Explain to people what that means. So if you're a woman and you're in your masculine energy, I mean, and put it in like elementary terms, because there might be some people who are like super into energy and have a well-rounded understanding of it. I think I do, but then there's some people that they might, in their journey right now be like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
So if you can kind of expand on that, what does that mean to be in your masculine energy?
Well, I think the main thing for and how it shows up in a lot of women is because in this world, no matter who you are or how you grew up, you genuinely don't feel safe for the most part as a woman, just because of society, the world, and how we've all grown up. And
Mm.
so, one thing that shows up is being on the defensive always,
Mm.
not asking for help, kind of feeling like you have to prove, you have to show up, you have to show your strength in a way that's like very outward
Mhm.
action.
Competitive, maybe.
Yeah, and almost like this aggressive way of being like, I can do it.
For me, that's something that I definitely am still working on. Um, what's a good term? Like laying down, like putting it to rest, like being in my masculine energy. And for me, I think it shows up as like definitely doing. Like I can do it, taking care of myself, being very self-reliant.
Exactly.
Um, I think in the past when I was a lot more just unhealed, it was very defensive, like emotionally, argumentatively, very defensive. But
That's what I,
it's not even like it doesn't feel natural. Even though it was like my instinct was like very reactive. It was like I don't want to be like that. You know what I mean?
exactly. Yeah, because it's not our nature. And all I will say, like men and women, no matter what gender you are, we have the balance of both, and you can't have one without the other. And that's where the imbalance comes from. So if you're like, oh yeah, I'm in my masculine energy, but now, and you realize that you were defensive, you want to just kind of soften a bit, you can't really leave your masculine energy behind,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can lay down the defenses, take it slow, soften a bit. But your feminine energy, in order for the feminine energy to really thrive, that nurturing, the receptive, the ability to let go, the ability to just relax, still needs the masculine.
Mm-hmm.
And that can show up for women in just being more responsible, really deciding what to put good things into your body, to take care of yourself, to have a stable routine in your life, to have structure. Those things really allow for, whether you have a man or in your life or not, those things really allow for your feminine to thrive. So I think when we talk about, oh, women are way too in their masculine, it's more so in the aggression, the defensiveness, the needing to prove, and the too much action.
Mm-hmm.
But we still need the stability, the structure, and the security in a way.
Right, right. Okay. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's an amazing way to put it. So
Mhm.
how does all this, I want to talk a little bit about the work that you do. Um, so I know you do these combo is am I saying it right? Combo?
Yeah,
Okay,
combo.
combo ceremonies. You do Reiki and you have these erotic retreats. So I want to know more about all of that. I've seen, I think it's pretty popular now to hear about people doing different ceremonies with like psychedelics and things like that. I think, at least from what I've seen, combo might be something a little bit less known or less talked about. So
Yeah.
maybe start there and tell us kind of about the healing work that you do.
Yes. So I got into the healing work. The work that I do and share with women are the main things that have helped me in my journey. So
Mm-hmm.
I I don't like to call myself an addict, but I definitely had a problem with substances and just really the excess of consumption of substances.
Mm.
And my body in 2019 started attacking itself via autoimmune disease. And I had psoriasis full body, head to toe.
Oh, wow.
My immune system was attacking itself because there's lots of energetic reasonings behind psoriasis, but on a physical level, my liver was overloaded with toxins from
Mm-hmm.
not just substances, but also chemicals and cleaning supplies, laundry detergent, all these things.
Everything like environmental. Yeah. Yeah. And I know I study Chinese medicine, like practice that or implement that in my life a lot. So I know liver is a lot of like unresolved emotion and anger.
Yes.
So, yes, and I also dealt with not psoriasis, but a lot of health issues that I've resolved over the last couple of years, and liver was like kind of the center of all of that.
Yeah, it is. It's the foreman. It tells all the other organs what to do. And also when we have repressed emotions and unfelt, and also when we're attacking ourselves with our mind, if
Mm,
go into the inner dialogue of how we speak to ourselves, how we view ourselves, like this is an attack on the physical body. And I do believe that every physical ailment, especially in women, everyone really, but it is stems from energy. It stems from how we
hmm.
treat ourselves, how much we love ourselves, how much we really like respect our body.
Yeah. So what does the combo do for that?
Yeah, so the combo is a physical experience. I really love psychedelics. I think they definitely have a place, but combo just works with the physical body and it works on all bodies, emotional, spiritual, mental, energetic, but it's directly working within the lymphatic system where all the toxins are being processed, and it helps the liver to flush, the gallbladder to flush toxins that are very deep rooted. There's not really anything else in the world or in Western medicine that is going to provide this deep of a detox. It's quite intense on the body. It's a very strong medicine, but it helps you to be connected to your body. It works directly with the root, the sacral, and the solar plexus. So the three lower chakras that are connected to our earthly reality. And it really helps to purge energy from there in a very quick and rapid way. And
Wow.
so
Okay.
this is so powerful because a lot of the times when we're working with these toxins, it's like a 30-day detox in 30 minutes. And
Mm.
when you begin to detox your physical body, you then become a channel for more light and more clean energy to flow through you, because we've just been accumulating bullshit our whole lives. And working at the physical level first, that's like creates a strong foundation for you to then work on the mind, work on mindset stuff, work on spirituality, go and have a psychedelic experience and not be purging in the bucket for 8 hours in an ayahuasca.
Mm.
You can still purge if you do combo before Aya, but the
Yeah.
combo is the physical purge.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Wow. You said a 30-day detox in 30 minutes. So is there, I mean, I'm assuming you're going to like be vomiting a lot. I mean, you're going to have like a physical experience. What do most of the women say afterwards? Like, how do they feel?
So usually it's a funny little arc that happens. It's like there's a bit of nervousness during, like before it's a bit of nervousness. During, they're like, I'm never doing this again. And after, they're like, wow, I feel so much lighter.
Wow. Yeah.
Some people intuitively know what they were releasing. Other people, they're just like, I don't know what that was, but I feel space in my body.
Mm.
I feel lighter, I feel cleaner. And usually the days after, you have a lot of clarity mentally. You feel more connected to life. You feel more connected to your true inner voice. So we have two inside of us, we have the horrible, mean critic that's just tearing us down. And then we have the voice of our true nature, which is that of unconditional love.
Hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. I want to hear more about these retreats. Is this something that you've recently started doing, the erotic retreats, or have you been doing that a while?
I've been doing them for a while now, the past 4 years.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So, um, I know, like you mentioned that, you know, you said something earlier about our sexual energy and just how that plays a role. I know Scorpio carries a lot of sexual power too. So, I'm curious about this, and I'll state the obvious that like there's um, so many beliefs, so many things, narratives out there around sexuality, especially surrounding women. So I'll just preface by saying, like, I think no matter where people stand, especially women, as far as their sexuality and how to approach it, I think it's always important to be open-minded that there might be more to the story. That's kind of like where I'm at, is like, I know that it's something super sacred, it's something super divine and powerful, our sexuality. It's something to be protected and cherished. It's not to be just willy-nilly thrown out there, give it out to whoever. And it's definitely doesn't belong to anybody but yourself. So I just want to preface by saying that because, religion and our culture and how you were raised and experiences, those things cause so much confusion and like all
Yeah.
this static around your sexuality, which should be like the most, like, just strong cornerstone of who you are, I think, especially as a woman. That's like such a PowerPoint for us. So I don't want to get on a tangent, but tell me about those the erotic retreats that you do.
Yeah, so the relationship with our sexuality is so important because our sexuality and how we relate with it is very correlated to our self-esteem and our worthiness. And if you haven't noticed, we do live in a world that is very disempowering, there's a lot of distortion in the world that we live in today that causes us to be disconnected from, again, our true nature and our power. And a woman's sexuality specifically is infinite. It's this pulsing energy that creates everything. It creates life. It's how we birth ideas. It's everything comes from a womb. Even there's cosmic womb, right? That the earth came from. And this is going on a little into different,
That's okay. Yeah.
but yeah, the sexuality of a woman is sacred and it is to be protected and it is something to be connected to, especially as you are, yeah, on your journey of empowerment. And for me, I experienced as a little girl sexual abuse. And because of that, that caused me to give my body away to people who were not worthy of it. And it also caused me to really not feel connected to my body at all because my sexuality was now something for men.
Not to toot my own horn, but people often ask me what makeup I use, what kind of skincare routine do I have, or what type of workouts do I do to stay in such great shape and looking so good. But my response is always I eat really healthy and I take a lot of supplements. Y'all know by now that I'm a huge advocate for self improvement, and step one to that is to quit being fat and get in shape. I always say that the dad bod needs to be dead. I am a First Form ambassador and a longtime customer, been using First Form since 2017, and I'm going to put you on to what supplements you should be taking non-negotiable. The First Form collagen with Dermavol will have you aging backwards internally and externally. Other popular brands like Vital Proteins are absolute trash when you look at the science of how these are made. Our collagen has the most diverse amino acid profile and the Dermavol phytonutrient rich complex as a bonus. Collagen is a protein found in every single joint, tendon, bone, and ligament in the body and is crucial to strengthening and keeping all those tissues healthy. Not only that, but it also helps support our skin health, elasticity, nail strength, hair health, and many other things. And of course, the post-workout stack, First Form's signature. Now, of course, you need to actually work out before you take this if you're trying to get in shape. Don't forget that part. The ignition will rapidly replenish glycogen, which equates to muscle energy. At the same time, Formula One protein powder is a rapid assimilation protein, which means it gets into the muscles very quickly and begins repairing them fast. With the post-workout stack, you can recover faster, reduce muscle soreness, and earn nothing short of incredible results. Oh, and the flavors go crazy and everything is made in the USA. Use my commission link in the episode description. Get hotter, get healthier, improve yourself, improve your dating pool.
It was something for other people to get enjoyment and for me to feel like I'm good enough, I'm chosen. And so because of that, I went on a deep journey with Tantra and I studied with Layla Martin for 3 years. And in that process, I healed a lot and I was able to come to this kind of neutral ground of not seeing my sexual energy as something that even has to do with sex, more so the creative energy, my aliveness, my sensuality, very connected to like my femininity. And I grew up Christian and Catholic also. And there was a lot of shame around even having sex before marriage. Like I remember I had so many conversations with my dad's side of the family, like, don't have sex before marriage. And in my head, I'm like a teenager and I'm like, well, it's already happened and I'm probably not going to stop, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And there was a lot of shame because of that. I'm like, oh no, God doesn't like this. What does that mean about me? And then I also had women in my family who were like, I've only been with 2 people or 3 people. And then they were all of a sudden better than the next woman. And so I also want to say, whether you've been with a lot of people, it doesn't have anything to do with your worth. It really is just your life experience. And Maybe they were mistakes, maybe they weren't. However you relate to them, it is what it is. And if you haven't been with a lot of people, you're also not better than any other woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the way that we're all here, we're learning through life experiences, and we're just doing our best with like the patterns that we learned as children, especially around
Mm-hmm.
sexuality, because we weren't taught the true nature of what it is, which is something that is just our energy, you know?
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
And I think it's really important for women to know that it's not something that's dirty, it's not something that is shameful, but also it's so valuable that you don't want
Mm-hmm.
to be sharing it with anyone.
Right.
And this is where the worthiness work comes in. And that's one of the teachings in Tantra, is like helping you to feel it so you can feel it in a way that activates you. And you're not just relating with it in a way that's purely sexual.
Hmm. Okay.
Does that make
So
sense?
kind of. I mean, I think I know what you mean when you say tantra, but can you kind of like describe what that is?
So, Tantra is basically the philosophy that everything is divine,
Okay.
is of God. So, Tantra really doesn't have to do with sex. There is a big part of it. And also in the world, Instagram, it's like Tantra this, Tantra that, and it's always something sexual.
Yeah.
But it really just is the philosophy that everything is divine.
Okay.
There's nothing
Okay.
separate from that. But you see how different that is from the world that we know, and how things like sex, anything sexual is taboo.
Yeah.
And oh, that's not okay. That's not of God.
Yeah. It's like anything sexual is like immediately judged as like good or bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so also sexual sex and sexual energy is very much a worldly thing, right? And so when we are trying to heal, there is an element that we need to go in. We need to go in and down.
Okay.
We need to descend to ascend.
Hmm.
And so part of that is going into the womb, or the energy of your womb,
Mm-hmm.
into the sacral chakra, the root chakra, the lower part of our body,
Mm-hmm.
bringing awareness to these parts, because this is where we also carry a lot of wounding from our lineage, mother, grandmother, great grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
but also the womb is like the energetic trunk drawer. And
Mm.
this is the home of your sexual energy, right? So coming into the womb, you can begin to clear a lot and become aware of a lot. But a lot of us are kind of living in the mind, especially as women. We're living up here, we're living in the heart, but there is that necessity to descend into the womb to deeper know yourself and have a deeper understanding of yourself.
Okay. Wow. That's super, super interesting.
I
So,
hope I articulate.
um, no, you are. It makes a lot of sense to me at least. So basically what you're saying is on the physical level, it's us reconnecting to our womb, I'll just say our reproductive organs, that whole area, our feminine area of our body. But what that's really doing is sort of connecting or reactivating the energy that is actually held there that makes us feminine, that makes us who we are, that all messed up from lineage, from traumas, from whatever. Is that kind of right?
Yes.
When you do these retreats or these like healing ceremonies, and correct my language if I'm not using the right terms, but and people can go to your Instagram and stuff. I'm going to link everything so they can kind of see visually what it is that y'all are doing. But um, what are you doing? So I'll just like put it, I'm a very straightforward person, Alina. So
Yeah.
it to somebody from the outside, especially if they have no awareness of anything that we're talking about, if they're just not there yet and they don't understand how energies work and stuff. They're gonna on these videos and being like, are they having orgies? What are they doing? How is this helping? It seems like they just want to get together and masturbate or something like that.
I
And
know.
that's just to to put it as what it looks like so that you can explain what it actually is.
Yeah. So, like I was mentioning before, the womb, like you said, there's distortions, but the womb and the sexual energy is really the powerhouse of our life force energy,
Mm-hmm.
the energy of our vitality. This is a very important energy for us to tap into. And
Mm-hmm.
so, when, for example, when we have the erotic immersion or these retreats that are very focused on your sexual energy, the first thing we tackle is like rewiring the shame,
Mm-hmm.
rebuilding the relationship with your body, because it's taboo. There's a lot of like disconnection from women's yonis
Mm-hmm.
and the womb itself, the hips. So we really drop into these areas to just reclaim them as normal, something we can celebrate. One thing I love to do in my workshops and retreats is doing like a yoni ritual where we take a little pocket mirror and we just look at our yoni. And for those who don't know, yoni is like vagina, but I don't like that word vagina because it actually
Mm-hmm.
means the sheath for a man's sword.
Oh,
So,
really?
yes,
I didn't
it's
know that.
the Latin word that means sheath for a man's sword. So I really reclaimed the word pussy, but to not be so aggressive on people's ears, we'll say yoni. And
Okay.
and just looking at it in the mirror
Mm.
and just feeling what's there, right? Because a lot of people may do that ritual and it happens a lot where they're highly uncomfortable. They're like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not used to looking at this. Also, like there's shame, like people get labiaplasties because they think their yoni and their lips are not what they think it is because of porn, making
Mm-hmm.
the woman's body need to look a certain way, and that's what's sexually desired by the world,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
So there's all these unconscious stories running that not a lot of us are aware of. And so even just sitting, looking at your yoni in a pocket mirror, feeling what's there and what's uncomfortable, then we can kind of unpack why is it uncomfortable? Okay, boom. And then we reset, we celebrate these parts of ourselves again to come into alignment with who we are because our body is a part of us.
Mm-hmm.
Again, coming back to the sacredness of our sexuality, our yoni is also a portal, a gateway, taking sex out of it to our energy and our pleasure, which
Mm-hmm.
is what is something that allows us to live a full life. Imagine a life without pleasure, right? And food, even eating food is pleasurable, something that has nothing to do with sex. But that's something that's connected to your yoni, to your sacral chakra, because it's pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Also, a massage, getting head scratches, all of this is still sensual,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what we aim to do at the retreats is really to take away the taboo from what's sexual and really bring sexuality into everything because it is everything. It is our energy. It
Yeah.
is how we communicate, how we show up in the world, how we feel confident, how we feel sexy,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
And then as we move through these practices and rituals, doing something like a breath work practice into the womb,
Mm-hmm.
doing a breathwork practice, moving the hips. A lot of people do breathwork lying down. I like to facilitate breathwork, moving the body, undulating the spine, moving this energy, right? Because a lot of us are stiff. A lot of us aren't moving our bodies, making sounds with our voice. The yoni and the throat are very connected.
Mm-hmm.
If you are not speaking your truth and setting boundaries, that's your yoni is shut down. Your
Mm-hmm.
sacral chakra is blocked. They're directly connected biologically by the vagus nerve, but also energetically, the sacral and the throat are connected. So when you're working with your sexual energy, again, it's not just for sex, it's not just for pleasure, it's for you to be in your truth, the truth of who you are as a woman. And that's different woman to woman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here to tell anybody what their truth is, but what I'm saying is it's all connected.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. I see what you're saying, and I'm kind of like visualizing kind of what you're talking about, what you would be doing, and how it's not just something that's sexual. You can almost even take that word out of it entirely.
Yes. And that is really what it is too. And I love these words like erotic because it
Mm-hmm.
sounds oh, it packs a punch. And there's a
Mm-hmm.
purpose why my women's circle is called the Erotic Embodiment Series, why the retreat that's coming up is called the Erotic Immersion, to really bring that punch. But at the end of the day, it is sexual, but it has very little to do with sex. It's
Mm-hmm.
sexual energy, our life force, our vitality, like I've said.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I love it. That's like really good. I think a lot of people that are going to already be like, oh my gosh, I'm mind blown. What's happening? Um, so I want to ask you because on my show, we have it's very diverse. There's a very large variety of people that come on here, people that listen. So I've certainly had guests who are Christian. I have a Christian background, while I'll also say, and I've kind of shared here and there, that my beliefs are sort of evolving and expanding at the same time. So I want to ask you, what are your spiritual and or religious beliefs, and how did you come to these? Because you obviously you've said so many words that people may not be familiar with. So how would you describe your belief system?
This is an interesting one because I really don't subscribe or feel like I'm gonna be like, oh, I'm Hindu or whatever. I
Mm-hmm.
don't relate with any religion. I've kind of taken bits from all religions, I feel like, over my time of just really finding my truth. And I will say that everybody's truth is going to be different. And I think that's the problem with religion is that it is very egoic in the sense of my religion is the right one and yours is not. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's already a problem because I have read not the whole Bible, but I read most of the Bible with my family. I did like Bible study. I grew up in the church, and I think there is so much beauty in Christianity. I really love Jesus. I connect with him on a very deep level, and also Catholicism. I love Mother Mary. I've worked with the energy of Mother Mary, like the archetype of Mother Mary, to help heal my inner child.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also work with some Hindu goddesses, the energy of them, calling them in and invoking them.
Mm-hmm.
And I've kind of just pulled what resonates for me. And yeah, my beliefs are rooted in that we are all God. We are all just God experiencing itself in human form. And we came to this earth to evolve as souls. And I believe that everybody, and this one might be hard for some people, but everybody, including terrorists, rapists, the worst people of the world, are loved by God. And that doesn't mean that there's no grief and disgust that comes
Mm-hmm.
up for me when I think of those things. Absolutely. But I just view God as this unconditionally loving force that is just love.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a lot of different experiences of really questioning my faith and being like, what is God? And I also, again, have always been very connected to Jesus. I don't have this story of like when I was in the church, other than the sexuality part, feeling shame about that, which I feel like is quite normal. I loved going to church. I went to a Latin church. We would sing, we would worship. I felt the Holy Spirit in the church, and I've always had that connection. But it's definitely evolved because what I felt the whole time was this force of love, this force. And I believe that God is both feminine and masculine. It's all things. Like, how limiting to think God is just a man. I feel like that's very limiting.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's what is true for you and that's what makes you feel safe and comforted, then I celebrate you and I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
But what I felt is just love from God, love from the church when worshiping God. The thing that kind of threw me off is like in Christian, there's a lot of kind of giving away your power to Jesus and being like, Jesus is everything and you are nothing. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't, I've done a lot of research through the Magdalene mysteries and the Rose lineage, which is an incredible book. I have it right here, actually.
Yeah, I love book recommendations. So
The
anything.
Left-Hand Path of the Feminine Christ. This is basically all about Jesus and Mary Magdalene's story. And it really goes into detail about the medicine man that Jesus was and how powerful he was. And he was doing energy work, and he would do these long summits into the mountain and fast, and he would like do instantaneous healing on people. But the part that's left out, and I do believe this is by design, by the patriarchy, which the patriarchy is the system that we live in today, that anything masculine is kind of like above anything feminine,
Mm-hmm.
women. And that there were 12 disciples in the Bible, right? Jesus had his 12 disciples. Well, they were all men. But
Mm-hmm.
in this story, he had 24 disciples, and the 12 men disciples had a woman by their side,
Mm-hmm.
a woman supporting them in their healing, supporting them in their schooling, in their ministry,
Mm-hmm.
right? Jesus also had a feminine counterpart supporting him in his ministry, Mary Magdalene, right? And I feel like this is very much connected to the world we live in today, because in order to really bring balance and to create something powerful, we need the feminine and the masculine. We need
Yeah.
the feminine and masculine within ourselves. And we also, whether you're with a woman and woman partnership or a man and man, these energies still exist. But we need that balance to create something powerful. And what I fear religion did is really took that aspect of the feminine out and left us really confused. Wait a
Mm-hmm.
minute, all these men are in leadership. Jesus was the one, his 12 disciples were men, and they were doing all this incredible stuff. What happened to the women in the story that
Right.
were also providing value and, leading the ministry and sharing these gifts and the word of Christ,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the commandments are really beautiful, right?
Yeah.
They're great things we should live by. Treat your neighbor, how you want to be treated. I think
Right.
that's how it is. I can't quote it.
Yeah.
My brain is like going all over the place.
Yes, the golden rule for
The
sure.
golden rule, and yeah, so I think that's my problem with religion is there
Mm-hmm.
is a part of it that is very much left out.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of this text and history has been destroyed. And so
Mm-hmm.
we won't ever know the truth. But when I read stories like this that were channeled, they're not from like, you can't cite where this came from, right? It's coming
Right.
from divine wisdom. It feels
Yeah.
like truth. And that's always what I empower people to do. Like, don't listen to me, don't listen to the church. What feels true for you? Use discernment.
Mm-hmm.
Truth is a frequency that can't be denied. It's felt. And because everything is lying to us, really,
Yeah. Yeah.
we haven't been able to really sharpen that sword of truth within ourselves and to know what truth even is.
Yeah. Yeah. And the irony there is you're kind of coming full circle with what you're saying because it goes, I put a lot of emphasis on like health and wellness. Like I'm just super into all of that because I understand that if you're not connected to your body, if it's not healthy, if it's full of toxins, if it's full of drugs and alcohol and processed food and you don't get sunlight and you don't drink water and it's just like deprived of all the things that it was designed to be, then you'll never even be close to reaching the truth. Your mind, your soul, it's all so suppressed. And I think that's on purpose. I think we live in a society that they want it that way because it keeps us out of our power. And then you add the element of, how powerful the feminine is. And of course, they just want to completely stifle that to the point of removing 12 women out of the story. It's kind of crazy.
Right?
So
There's lots more,
sure.
even with
Yeah.
Mary, like she conceived Jesus through light conception, which is something that they used to do through like the divine Holy Spirit, like making a baby in the womb without,
Like a human man.
yeah, without
Yeah.
human. But she wasn't a virgin. She was a tantrika. Like she did a lot of the sex rituals and things to
Mm,
activate her sexual energy with another person. Because when you do that with a partner, also, like you can do it with yourself, but also when you share that with a partner, it's very powerful.
interesting. So what would you say to people who would be like, I'm sure you hear this, but like that you're spreading heresy, or you're demonic, or you're practicing witchcraft, or like what would you say to people who say that kind of stuff about you?
Honestly, I really try to keep it light. I always let people
Mm,
thank you for your concern for my
yeah.
spirit. You know, you want me to go to heaven or whatever. But I mean, they crucified Jesus.
Mm,
They they came after him and killed him because of
mm,
his word and his teachings, right? So it doesn't matter what you're doing. Somebody's gonna come for you and try to put you on, burn you on the stake, or tell you that you're not doing the right thing or you're of God. And people really just need to stay in their lane and worry about themselves. I feel like all I can do is just try to share the light and be in a good intention and always make sure that I'm acting, not from a place of ego, but from a place of genuinely trying to bring balance. I feel like for
mm,
me, that's very important, is bringing the balance of the masculine and the feminine.
yeah.
And but it's hard to tell people when they're so stuck in their story again, which religion really makes you feel is like, my way of thinking is right and you're absolutely wrong. And because you're wrong, you're a threat and you need to be destroyed. But it's
Mm.
like, whoa, that's a little crazy. If you don't buy into what I'm sharing or you don't believe what
Yeah.
I'm teaching, that is totally fine. And I celebrate you for staying in your truth.
Mm,
But you don't need to come try to shut me down or destroy me, right? Because that's a very common thing, is like it's just modern day witch hunters.
mm,
In the 1800s, when the women were killed, millions of women were killed just for being women, for being midwives, doulas, herbalists, for being connected to the earth. That was something that was wrong because religion came in and they said, nope, they're too powerful. And then they turned it all around. They turned the story to make the witches the evil ones, but yet they were the ones killing the witches, but then the witches were the bad ones.
So what do you think back then the witches were? Like, because I think the way it's depicted now is like hocus pocus, like, but in your opinion, what were witches, or what are they?
Sovereign women in their power that you couldn't actually lie to because they were so connected to their intuition that they could spot a lie from a mile away.
Mm,
The women who were healing people with magic,
hmm.
because if you can do that, then you don't need a system to rely on.
What was the like magic?
Herbalism, using plants to
Mm,
help people, energy healing, using just energy, prayer, and intention with hands on placements or not, and providing instantaneous healing. When you
mm.
have a society that doesn't need to rely on any system, that's very dangerous for the people who are trying to control. Because
Right.
see how the world that we live in is very reliant on the system, medical system, the schooling system, everything. Whereas before, the elders were just passing down the wisdom. People didn't, there was medicine, but it was medicine from the earth that you didn't need to rely on because it got to the root, right?
Hmm.
So you can't control a group of people like that.
Hmm.
You have to take their power away.
Yeah.
And the women were the ones who were doing this for the most part. There were obviously medicine men and wizards and men herbalists and men midwives. I'm sure of it.
Mm,
But the women are the ones that are extra tapped in through the energy of their womb to the divine, to spiritual wisdom and intuition and knowing that is true.
mm.
Because the womb is the feminine third eye. It's upside down for the women.
Huh. The womb is the feminine third eye.
Yes, it's very
Interesting.
much our seat of intuition. It's always our third eye, but we have kind of like this energetic cord going up and this energetic cord going down into the earth
Mm,
through the womb. And that's where wisdom comes through. So when you're tapped in and connected, this is why I teach this. You cannot be lied to. You cannot be controlled.
mm,
Come into alignment with your truth and who you are. Think about all the women who don't know who they are, who are just out here acting in whatever way that they think they're supposed to act.
mm-hmm.
It's not authentic. But you see more and more people coming into their authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
More and more people awakening to their truth, more and more people being connected and tapped in. Those people are going to be harder to control.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. Um, I like what you said about the witches thing because that's something that I think for a long time, like I said, I kind of like for me it always goes back to the body because I think that's where I started in my like journey of kind of awakening years ago. It started with the body and learning truth about like how just what is available to heal versus what the medical system tells you is available or wants you to believe is available. That's where I started. And so it always comes back to that for me. And so I have thought for many years, like these witches that they like portray in Disney movies or like that you hear about or whatever stories. And like, they seem kind of cool. Like they seem like, I feel I relate to them in some way. Like, they're these women who are like super strong and powerful and they kind of, like you said, can't be messed with and they have make these like potions and I'm like, well, I joke about like when I'm sick, I'm like gonna make some potions or like if my friends are sick, I'll make you some potions and bring them to you. And it's just healing medicine, but it's
Yeah,
God's medicine. It's not the system's medicine. So people think, what is this? Can I take this? And it's crazy. It's like, what do you mean? It's like it came out of the ground.
how did we separate God from nature?
Right.
The earth.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that, like, how did that become separate?
Mm-hmm.
Not
Right. Or how did goodness become separate from nature?
the
Like
distortion.
what's good for you is now what's man-made or what's trickled down from the patriarchy, but it's like, no, what's actually good is just what we already have. We didn't need you to add, of course, with medicine and stuff like that, there's some things that are good that are new technologies. But anyway,
Absolutely.
I'm totally following what you're saying. So, okay, so the witches, like, where was I?
And I will
Um,
say there is a shadow aspect to this. I have worked with
sure.
people who have done witchcraft in the shadow aspect of it. So it's really important if you're doing any magic. And when I say magic, I literally mean saying an affirmation because your voice is that powerful that you can speak things into existence, right?
Hmm.
Speaking what you desire, doing a manifestation ritual, or even a sex magic ritual using the energy of your orgasm to visualize what you want to create in the world. But it's really important to set the tone for may this only manifest, or I'm doing this only for the good of all beings. Because I have worked with women helping undo spells where they did spells on people to harm them or to hurt them in order for them to gain something.
Hmm.
So there is definitely such a thing as like dark magic,
Hmm.
where you can do magic to get what you want, but it's at the expense of somebody's life or health or relationship.
Yeah.
And this is where it absolutely does get messy and it's not going to be good for you because whatever you do, you're going to get back to you. It's the karma, it's the law of the universe, but also you're now messing with other people's free will and their life.
Hmm.
And I've worked with women who had like 30-year spells on them, and we worked with Kambo to help kind of like clear
Really?
these.
How did you know they had spells on them?
So people who do dark magic usually are working with the dark goddesses like Hecate, and they'll usually have a tattoo where you're like offering a piece of your soul, and it's a Hecate tattoo with like a sun and a moon. That's how you can know. But also, the client that I was working with had shared this with me, and we didn't even know Kambo was going to help purge this. And mind you, you don't get out of anything without your karma paid. So she was like 25 years with this hex on her because she put a spell on somebody where she got what she wanted, but it was at the expense of somebody's life. And she lived like 25 years of suffering for it.
Mm.
Um, so you still always have to pay. Like whatever you do to somebody is always going to come to you, no
Mm.
matter if you get what you want in it. Yeah.
Wow. So she actually was aware. She knew
She
what.
knew what she was doing, and a lot of people who are doing black magic are aware of it.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I don't mess around with that stuff. I always declare, no matter what I'm doing,
Right.
may this be in the good of all. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what's really important is like you're not harming anybody to get what you want. Like in the world of like manifestation, it's like you can have whatever you desire and you can like experience all these things. And it's like, yes, you can, at the harm to no one,
Mm-hmm.
for the good of all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why like it's called like a being a white witch, I guess.
Okay. That makes sense. That just reminded me of like, did you ever watch the show Charmed? And it's like, so
I feel like that's
kind
a
of,
really good show, but I don't think
it
I watched
is.
it.
It's really old. It's probably from the late 90s. I mean, at least when it started would have been in the 90s. But they're three sisters that are good witches. So they fight like demons and warlocks. It's kind of sci-fi-y a little bit, but they my dad, who is super Christian, great man, but just very like traditional Christian,
Okay.
we would watch that at home. Me and my sister are like obsessed with it. We loved it so much. But he would always kind of like stop like in the living room, like make sure he's like, what's going on? He's like, this stuff isn't real, right? Like you shouldn't be messing around with like witchcraft or anything like that. I'm like, Dad, they're good witches. They're fighting the demons. He's like, okay. So I think, you know that there's always a shadow to everything.
Exactly.
There's good and evil in everything, even in the church, even in different religions. There's always good and evil. I think that's just a token for anybody who's might be listening that's a little bit taken back. Like, I don't know about all this, or I've always been told, don't mess with that. I've been told, don't mess with this. But
And that's
there's,
okay to
yeah.
have like genuine like respect and hesitation,
Mm-hmm.
not mess with things because the spiritual realm is very vast and there are equal parts light and equal parts dark.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to sit here and be like, well, darkness is evil. I don't believe that it is evil because at the end of the day, it is serving the light. Because anything that's contrasting what's good, it's going to provide evolution for your soul and growth for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, as all bad things and horrible things that happen, yes, they're
Right.
horrible, not to take that away. But what I'm saying is, it ultimately does serve the light again
Mm.
at some point, and that is the contrast of the universe. And
Yeah.
I think we're also programmed to be like, oh my God, it's bad. And the fear. The fear is probably the worst thing to be in, the worst emotion to just have within you all the time
For
because it's
sure.
the opposite of faith. And I think when we're living in faith and trust and good intention, that's what matters the most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so I wanna hone in and just narrow it down just a little bit into dating and romantic relationships. I feel like we set a good foundation, just kind of your scope and where we're speaking from. But in the dating world right now, it's very chaotic. It's all over the place. I don't have a better word for it besides chaotic. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of people who are traumatized, people who are jaded. There's a lot of narcissists running around. It's crazy. It's the wild, wild west.
Yeah.
Um, and I know, at least from my experience, there's a lot of pain and a lot of heartbreak that women experience who genuinely just want to be loved and just want to love somebody else.
Yeah.
And we go through these bad relationships, getting anything from like getting ghosted to being betrayed to being used, just all these terrible things.
Yeah.
What do you think is the reason that so many women are experiencing so much pain and heartbreak in dating and in romantic relationships?
Did you know that, according to the experts, you should be pooping 1 to 3 times a day for optimal health? Anything less than that is considered chronic constipation. This is why you look bloated all the time or have that stubborn pudge below your belly button that never seems to flatten. Hot girls have tummy issues, am I right? There are so many natural solutions to poor digestion and gut imbalances, like a good probiotic, which I personally take every single day, a clean whole foods diet, and my personal favorite, doTERRA's Digest Zen Essential Oil Blend. I am an absolute slut for doTERRA's essential oils, which are the purest on the market, and I've been using for years. I use them literally every single day, and I won't travel without them. Their blends, like Digest Zen, are curated for a specific symptom, in this case, constipation. I apply 2 drops to my belly right where my colon and intestines are in a circular motion every night before bed. Like clockwork, every morning within an hour of waking, I have a nice, smooth, large, healthy looking bowel movement. Boys, I know some of you like to think girls don't poop, but we do. And we should all do it more often. So head to my doTERRA link in the episode description to order the Digest Zen Blend ASAP and get 25% off for an entire year. That link is my.doterra.com/TWHS. And again, it will be linked in the episode description. Thank me later.
Yeah. So the biggest reason it comes back to the distortions and society, the horrible things that women have gone through, the feminine has gone through, and also because of the patriarchy, the society we live in and how it's set up, men are also not in their power because now they're placed above the feminine. And there is all this abuse that's happened over lineage and mistreatment and just atrocities that have happened to women from men. And so collectively, we feel that. Collectively, we resonate with that. We all have that living within ourselves, living within our energy. And there's not this balance with the masculine and the feminine. It's not within each individual, and it's not within the men and women of the world.
Right. And that's why I used the word competitive earlier, because I feel like, what you're saying is historically what has happened with the patriarchy, men always being above us and blah, blah, blah. We know that story. And then like the rise of feminism was kind of like, well, no, we're going to be above you. We can do what you can do. We don't need you, screw you. We don't need no man. Men ain't shit. We're going to run the world. And
Yeah.
for me personally, I don't think that that's healthy either. I
No.
think you're just flipping the script, but it's the same script. So it's still not finding balance or honor.
Yeah.
So I don't subscribe to the modern feminist movement in the way that, society has,
Yeah.
they would describe it.
And I definitely had a moment in my life where I was like that.
Really.
Yes. Very like, I'm better than men, men ain't shit. Like, we're not gonna do this. And just kind of like treating them with no respect.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to balance. And when you're so like in pain and you're hurt over and over again, it's like
Yeah.
that's the only response when you're not aware.
Right. How do we fix it? How do
Yeah.
we heal from these traumas? Like, how do we climb out of this hole?
Yeah. Well, I think the best thing to do is just to focus your energy inward, focus on really healing, because the biggest thing is like hurt people hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have pain within you, when you have trauma, big or little, because I know there's some people out here who are like, oh, I don't have any trauma. Everybody has trauma.
Mm-hmm.
The way that the world is not set up in the right way. We all have
Right.
experienced trauma, we've all experienced hurt. That's quite literally the purpose of life here on earth. But the way that we stop that is turning our energy inward, healing, and also viewing each other. Like I said before, my view on spirituality is like we are all God. And so when I relate with my partner, I view him as that, and I always have. And he views me as a goddess, right? And so knowing that no matter where people are at in their journey, they still deserve that. But it's really hard for you to look at somebody with compassion and be like, okay, I know that you're learning. I know that you're in pain, before you do that for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it really starts with you. It starts with you having compassion for yourself and all that you've been through and all the mistakes that you've made, and then looking to the men in the world. Because I can tell you, I've heard a lot of people like, where are the men doing the work? The men aren't doing the work outwardly like we are. I feel like I'm not healing the journey, and everybody's sharing on Instagram, and everybody's like, this is what I'm doing to heal. The men are not doing that, but are they healing? Absolutely.
Okay,
Are they
that's
journaling? Are
encouraging.
they meditating? Yes. I know more
Mm,
men who are doing the work actively than not now. And I think that's just, when you are immersed in this type of stuff, you just attract more of that.
right.
So if you want that, if you want to find men who are working on themselves, who are healing, who are not complete and utter assholes
Mm,
then you need to come into yourself. Where have I been treating people badly? Where have I been abusing people? Where have I been abusing myself? Where
mm.
have I not been respecting myself? Where have I not been respecting other people? And I think that's the biggest thing, is like, you need to turn your energy inward, change your surroundings, and then that will ultimately reflect in the men that come around you.
What do you mean when you say change your surroundings?
Well, okay, so if you're somebody who is in a place where you're just starting your healing journey and you're like, you know what, I have a lot of pain, I have a lot of trauma, I've been going to the club, been drinking, been, numbing, hanging out
Mhm.
with people who I don't know if I even like them, but we're all just like partying together, so it's like kind of okay. Take inventory. Do you like these people? Are
Right.
they real people? Like, are the people that you're surrounded with, even your female friendships, are they supporting you? Are they really genuinely going to be there for you? Do you like them? Do you like spending time with them? How do you feel around these people? Take inventory and then decide, who do I need to let go of? And then be open to creating new relationships. But I will say there is kind of like a caveat to that, because you could be like, oh, I'm just going to cut everybody off and say, "Fuck you."
Right.
But that's also very avoidant. So try to look at things objectively. Look at yourself in the mirror. What are your patterns, And this just takes consciousness. And I think you asked me, how do we stop it? Well, it takes consciousness, because you have to be aware and conscious moment to moment. Conscious just means being awake to what you're doing in your patterns and choosing differently. If you've been in a pattern of doing XYZ, maybe you ghost people or you get ghosted and you're just like, why does this keep happening to me? Well, you need to figure out, well, what are you doing that is creating this, and do differently?
Mm.
And it's okay if you're at a complete loss and you're confused and you're like, I don't know, because this shit takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the compassion comes from. That's where the compassion needs to be. You have to be okay with making mistakes and just trying your best, but so many people are stuck in the anger of it all. They're
Mm.
stuck in the pain, or they want to hurt. They want
That's
to
the
say,
liver.
yes, have a good rage session. Something we also do at the erotic embodiment retreats is like, we have a good rage. Okay, we're screaming, we're punching pillows, and we're channeling this grief from all the times we've been hurt, all the times we said yes when we should have said no, all the times when somebody crossed a boundary, right?
Mm.
There's anger that needs to be felt because of that. And we're all scared of our anger too, because it's like, oh no, now we're the crazy. Or if you're Latina, now you're a crazy Latina. It's like, no, no, because
Yeah.
you can do this in a healthy way where you're not hurting anybody, right? We do it in a circle of women and we're just like raging and we're all cheering each other on. And then that rage can turn into turn on, because this is energy that's just needing to be released, and it can be pleasurable. But those are next steps. First, feel your anger,
Mm-hmm.
then go into the
Yeah.
try to communicate and relate with people. Because if you have all this shit clogging you, you're just going to be in the same pattern. You're going to be in the same loops. That's another reason why I work with the combo. It's a big pattern interrupt.
You talked about clarity, mental clarity from the
Yeah.
combo. So I would think that that would help you start to see some of these patterns or recognize things that you didn't recognize before.
Yeah, it brings you to a 0 point place, kind of like a very centered place where you can see things objectively. Because a lot of the times when we're looking at ourselves or we're looking at our relationships, it's hard for us to take responsibility and to
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, how am I contributing to my own suffering? How am I contributing to the shit relationships that I've been in?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people can't do that. And that's totally fair. And I understand,
Mm-hmm.
because that is hard. to take
Yeah,
responsibility.
I think especially what I found too is the desire can be there to want to take responsibility or want to like what am I doing wrong? I know I'm the common denominator in all of my failed relationships. I know that I'm doing something wrong. Like I know I want to know what do I need to do to fix it. But sometimes maybe most of the time, these patterns, the beliefs, the narratives are so deeply seated in your subconscious, in your soul, in your DNA,
Yeah.
that you can't just like think your way out of it. That's
No.
where I found myself. It's like I've done everything in my power on my own, even with some help to like figure this out. And like it was time to go deeper. The
Yeah.
the most beneficial thing that I'm doing currently was working with an energy healer. She says, I say she's just like an angel from heaven that just heals people. But she's like, if I were to have a title, it would be like an energy psychologist. But she's incredible and she's able to like read and process and move energy in a way that I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
And she's able to like help me dig up these deep roots and patterns that I had no idea were my system.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're born out of experiences, traumas. It could be one little thing that you experienced, or it could be something that goes 6 generations deep. But I think because so many people lack consciousness, which again, my theory always goes back to the body. If you're drinking every weekend, if you're consuming TV and just garbage, you can't become conscious. So it starts there. But what would you say, where would you tell people to start? If people are kind of at that breaking point where they're like, I don't know what to do, but I know it's not this,
Yeah.
um, where should they start in their healing journey?
Yeah. So starting in the healing journey, like you're just like, oh my God, I have all these patterns, I have all these things. What do I do? Therapy. Talk about it. Become aware of it by the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Then work into the body, kind of like how you did. Sometimes I work with women where they're just like straight, we're going into the somatic work because that's kind of where I come in, the somatic part of it,
Mm-hmm.
healing the deep work. Because, yeah, it's one thing to be aware, but it's another thing to like clear it through your DNA, rewire your nervous system to actually support you and where you're going. Because when we have these deep rooted patterns, they're just very deep rooted and they'll continue playing until you kind of create that pattern interrupt. So, but the main thing is find somebody to support you. We're out here trying to do everything on our own, and this is a big problem because we're communal creatures, we're tribal creatures. We need community, we need somebody and sisterhood, mentors, wise women, women who have walked our path to show
Mm-hmm.
us the way, to help us find our own truth, to help us activate our own healing powers, because that's really what a healer does, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've worked with women who I'm like, you are the magic, you are the healer, girl. Like, I love you. And then they're, no, you are the healer. I'm just here to reflect that back to you. And that's something that I always share with my clients too. I'm not doing this. You are. I'm just here to show you that. And so that's what community does. That's what mentors do. Sisterhood, when you get into a group of women, oh, those are all just mirrors for you to see
Mm.
yourself on a deeper level.
Yeah.
Don't be alone in the house isolating when you're healing. No, don't do that.
Sometimes you need a little bit of it, but yes, I we haven't even really touched on that, but in our culture, there's a lot of tension between women to women, and I think I've been blessed since I was super young to connect with women well. Like I've always had lots of girlfriends, which I'm super grateful for. I never had like a roommate that I disliked or was never short of friends or mentors, female mentors. Now the guys, that's a whole other story. That's been a journey that I'm still on, a hill I'm still climbing. But I see for the most part with women, I think I see it well because it's such a contrast to how my experience. But I see other women experience so much tension, or I see, if I have a friend or an acquaintance and I feel it, that projection onto me, I'm like, whoa, what is this? Like, why can't we just love each other and be friends? Like, even when it's hard, like you're talking about a woman reflecting back to you who you are, and that's going to be the good and the bad, right? But as women, a lot of times we perceive that as like threatening, or we become on the defense, or she thinks she's better than me. She thinks she's better than everybody else. And it's so toxic.
Yeah.
How do we shift that as women? Like, there's what's the term now? Being a girl's girl. I don't know exactly quite what that means, but like it sounds good. Um, how do we shift, so to speak, to being girls in the sense of like helping each other heal and genuinely wanting each other to be better and to have what they want? Like, how do we genuinely love each other? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I love this. I love the term girls girl. I fully identify with being a girls girl. And I feel like a girls girl really is just for the girls. Like you see another woman and you celebrate her. You want her to be happy. Maybe she's not doing what you would do. And maybe you're like, whoa, that's out there. But you're just like, you know what? Hell yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
And that comes from doing that for yourself.
Or even like seeing someone and like wanting some of what they have. Like how I was like, I'm kind of obsessed with you. Like, a lot of women might that might manifest as jealousy. But
Yeah.
instead of jealousy, it should be like, connect with me. I want to connect with you. You have a light, you have something that I want to experience or know or understand or learn from you, bestow your wisdom upon me instead of like, shoving it back in their face. Um,
Right.
so how do we fix that? Because I feel like even when it comes to dating and relationships, if there's tension, there's obviously tension between the men and the women, but if there's also tension between the women and the women, that's just going to make things worse, right?
Right. Yeah. And this goes back in history to pitting women against each other. Why? Because when we come together, we're powerful. That mirror
Mm,
of reflecting the good and the bad, but mainly the good, really. Like when you are with your other, like with your sisters, you can activate each other in a way that you're not going to do on your own. And so society has again pitted women against each other, especially through the witch hunts, going back to that conversation, because in order for a woman, a witch, to save her life, she would have to tell on another sister, which often resulted in both of them being killed. But she would tell where they were or what the person was, or no, that's the witch, because
mm,
herself. Then you move forward into a society where women didn't have rights and their men was their livelihood, their survival. And then another woman who may be more beautiful or more charismatic coming along, and now your man all of a sudden is like, "Ooh, I like her. I'm gonna go with her." Now you can't live, right?
mm,
So we first need to understand like why this is and how
yeah.
deep it is and how tender it is. Because yeah, I mean, I've done tons of healing work around this too. And I literally lead sister circles, and this still comes up for me,
Mm,
where I could be threatened by another woman's beauty or another woman's energy or her just audacity, just being
yeah.
her authenticity and being amazing. I'm like, whoa. And then it makes me feel less than. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just the programming that we receive. That's not the truth. So, really identifying it's okay to feel these things, but what we need to stop doing is believing this bullshit,
That's good.
believing that another woman in her power is a threat to you. But we're still going to feel it probably. And that's okay. But we don't need to believe it anymore. It's
Yeah.
not true.
Yeah. You can acknowledge it while also acknowledging that that's not my thought. That's not from
Right.
me. That's not the truth.
And here's where the work I do is also important, right? Being in the body, being aware, feeling what's there. Because sometimes you feel icky, that feeling of jealousy, that feeling of being threatened by another woman, especially if you're in a relationship. Oh, it's visceral.
Mm-hmm.
It's visceral. So, how
For
can you be
sure.
with that and not believe it,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have to be with it.
Yeah. Well, there has to be some nuance to that too, because there can also be women who don't have good intentions,
Yes.
right? So, so, you know, that I guess I've never really thought about that, but that like visceral feeling, how do we discern that? Like, is this my gut telling me that this person is bad energy, has bad intention, or is this me, my insecurity coming up?
Yes, thank you for bringing this up because this is so important. And something that I like to stick to for myself, because the programming's there. I'm no different. I still
Mm-hmm.
experience this fear. Anything that's rooted in fear or separation is not true. So, fear and anxiety and like just trauma, it's a very loud visceral reaction. It's very loud in the mind. It's like, oh no, like a scenario flashes through your mind and it just feels like big and
Mm-hmm.
just like, ugh. Whereas intuition, yes, it's a visceral feeling, but it's a lot more stable. It's coming from a different place of like groundedness, of like, hey, look out for this. Mm. And it's more calm, but it's still there, right? But it's not so like intense.
Mm-hmm.
So intuition, I always like to refer to as a whisper, a knowing that kind of comes through like the wind. Fear and anxiety and like a trauma response is usually very loud and like kind of crazy.
Mm.
And I know that this can come up too with women because I've been cheated on and I literally knew that I was being cheated on. I didn't even need to get any proof. I was just like, I know. When I look back to that, it was annoying. It was
Yeah.
annoying. And yes, it was visceral, but like sometimes the anxiety is way more visceral.
Mm-hmm.
So only you can know what's intuition and what's anxiety. And you do that by connecting to your body and getting familiar with your body and the cues that your body gives you.
Mm.
And that's
What
where,
are
again,
some practical ways that we can do that? Like, what are some practical ways that people can connect to their intuition? Because our intuition is just God, right? That's our direct line of communication to God.
yeah,
So, how do we start to cultivate a very sharp understanding of our intuition?
yeah. So, okay, there's a lot of ways.
That's a big question, but
Yeah. I feel like on a basic level, like, first of all, you have to begin to understand yourself through therapy or coaching or something like that, working with your energy, working with your psyche, working with your body. But a simple practice you can do if you're already on that path is to just breathe in meditation. I like to put one hand on my womb for the feminine third eye or the energy, like the space of my womb. If you don't have a womb, you still have the energy of your womb and it's still there
mm,
energetically. So bring one hand to the womb, one hand to the heart, because the heart also knows. The heart will also guide you in the right direction. Taking a deep breath in and asking yourself the question, whatever it is that you want to know. And if you're new to this, ask yourself any questions. Ask yourself questions that you already know the answer to and questions that you want to inquire about. You can even ask yourself lies that you know, right? And just seeing what flutters in your body, where you feel different sensations.
mm,
And this, it takes practice. Again, we're not used to being in our bodies. Our bodies are always communicating with us through sensations. So be patient with yourself. If you don't feel anything, that is totally fine and normal. But know that with time, you'll begin to become receptive to the subtle frequencies of the body. And so as you do this, you ask yourself your questions. Usually, when I get a yes, it's like an expansion. Or if it's like even good, like a good
mhm,
thing that I'm inquiring about. And it's like, yes, it's like expansion. It feels open. My body gets a little bit warm and fuzzy. If it's no, or let's say if it's about somebody cheating, for example, and it's like a yes to that, it feels contracted. It feels like a thump, like something just fell. It feels hot, but not in a warm and fuzzy hot, like an uncomfortable hot.
mhm.
It's from my body, right? So I believe everybody is different, but it'll roughly be similar. But only you can know by just becoming aware and familiar with your body and the cues.
Mm, that's super, super interesting. There was a podcast I was recently listening to, and the guest was, she was sharing about, I don't remember what the word was, but it was kind of like along the lines of astrology, but not exactly. It's kind of like a way to understand
Human
personalities.
design.
Yes, human design.
Yeah.
Yes. So she was talking about human design. She just wrote a book about it. I don't
Ooh.
remember her name. I wasn't planning on talking about this, so I didn't look these things up, but I can find it. But she was talking about human design. And this was Caitlin Bristow's podcast. I don't know if you know who she is, Off the Vine. And she's somebody who I've followed her for years. I feel like I really relate to her personality. Like I just feel like we're very similar. And so the lady that was talking about human design was telling Caitlin about herself and her design and whatever her primary thing was. There's all these different words.
Authority.
Yeah. So there's like the manifester, the this, the that. And whichever one she was telling her along the lines of intuition that you respond really well to yes or no questions. And she
Mm-hmm.
was like, that's the way you're going to be able to navigate things. Because some people are not like that. They process, it takes them longer to process things. It takes them longer to make decisions, to figure out what's for them. She was like, your style is a quick, and if it's not quick, then it's not for you. And you respond to yes or no questions. So I was like, all right, let me try it. Because everything they were saying, like I said, I feel very similar to Caitlin. And so I started doing that, and I'm like, it works.
Yeah.
And if I really ask myself the question, if for me, it's in a yes or no form. And immediately it's almost like the inner voice tells me yes or no. And I
Yeah.
can
And
feel it in my body. Yes.
it's the very, very, very first thing that comes through. And if you're like,
Mhm.
oh, was that a yes or no? And then now all of a sudden it's a no. No, no, it has to be the first thing, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. I'm going to start doing that in combination with kind of like how I would do my breath work, like hand on the belly, hand on the heart, and see
Yeah.
how it feels.
Yeah.
I imagine there'll be a lot more feeling associated with it.
When I was doing this, because I'm a Libra and so I'm very indecisive and it's hard for me to make decisions a lot of the time, I would do this with absolutely everything. So I would be at a restaurant and I'm like, what am I going to order? Hand on the heart, hand on the womb. What am I going to order? The first thing that, boom. If I was like walking and I wanted to turn a random way, I'd be like, where am I going? Like, where, like, lead me, intuition, lead me to the highest place.
Mhm.
And then I'd follow that. So do it with things that are not so heavy and serious. So you can begin to get to know and always remember it's the first thing that comes.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Wow,
everybody
that's so
should
good.
learn about human design.
Yes, it's on my list. I have so many things I'm like delving into right now, but I put that like on the back burner, human design. I'll probably read that book, but have you studied it a lot?
Yeah, I don't, it's a vast science. Like it would take decades to fully grasp it, I feel like, because it's so much. But yeah, I do know a little bit about it. I'm a manifesting generator, 6-2 profile.
Okay. I'll pretend to know what that is, but I'll learn.
It's a whole thing, but
Yeah.
it's really fascinating and I resonate a lot with it. It tells me a lot of things about life, and I'm just like, yeah, that's true.
Mm,
What are you?
okay.
What's your sign?
My sign? I don't know
Your
my
sign.
human design. I don't
Oh,
know. I haven't gone that far. I'm a Sagittarius.
oh,
Yes. And
love
so I have, with that, I have a lot of Gemini and some Scorpio too. And there's a lot of stuff going on in my chart, but I'm definitely very Sagittarius, like to a T.
very free.
Yes, very, that for me, freedom is everything. My independence, my will, it's like triumphs everything else. Yeah. Yeah. And even astrology, is something that people will say is like, anti-God or it's not real or it's demonic or it leads you astray or whatever.
Very
but
confused. It's just constellations in the sky.
yeah. So I think, someone once told me, a guy who's a part of the church that I went to, and he said, because I was like, to me, it makes sense. This is when I was kind of first diving into it. I said, to me, it makes sense that there would be sort of this like manuscript, this like astrological blueprint for like humans. Like, God's very like methodical. It seems like he would be like, hey, this is laid it out for you guys to understand
Right?
yourselves. And he's like, well, or, it could be dangerous because you're taking on these things that astrology says you are, as opposed to God telling you who you are. But I'm like, what if they're the same thing? What if, it is of God? So it's just a real easy way for God to tell you about yourself and others and what's happening day to day and year to year and what season you're in and things like that. So I know some people won't subscribe and that's fine, but for me, it's very powerful.
And I'm glad you brought that part up because this goes back to what we were saying about discernment. Because astrology is a massive science. There's so
Mhm.
many variables to it. So you could sit here and not know anything about astrology, but then you read a bit about your sun sign and your moon sign and your rising sign. Maybe it resonates, maybe it doesn't. But it's for you to take what resonates and to leave what doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
right? And to have that discernment for what you're reading and figure out if that's true.
Right. Yeah. That's to me, that's all it is it's something that is supposed to provide validation and direction.
Yeah, and it really does.
Yeah.
But again, it's a massive thing. Like if you're going to look into it fully so you can really understand what you're talking, like what you're reading about before.
Right. Yeah. Go beyond just like the memes that pop up on your Instagram.
Exactly.
As we approach dating and romantic relationships, how do you think, and this could be for men and women, how do we kind of ensure that we're doing it in a healthy way? I think that's a problem, as people are just aimlessly pursuing people, whether it
Yeah.
be just for sex, for fun, for even for marriage, without really having intention behind it.
Yeah.
So, how do you think? And you seem to be in a very healthy relationship. I love Kevin, by the way. He's amazing.
That's something.
Um, after I met him and talked to him, I was like, can we just like make copy paste this type of guy in like all different races and from different backgrounds, different colors, so we can just have someone who's like so grounded and like just make that a foundational kind of person. So he's awesome.
It's the embodiment of what he teaches.
Yes, yeah, it's like radiates out of him. He is exactly what you see is what you get. Yeah, so my question is, how do we ensure that we're approaching relationships in a healthy way?
Yeah. I think the first thing is radical self-responsibility
Mm,
and exploring your inner world, going into childhood, stopping, changing the pattern, changing your environment, reflecting on your life. We don't need to take it so serious. Some people are like with the healing, they really go all in and they're like dissecting and what does this mean and why do I do that? There's definitely an extreme to it. Tune in to your intuition, tune in to the force that's greater than you, that's guiding you, and take responsibility. Lead from the heart. Choose love in whatever form that is.
yeah, that's so good. It's so simple, really.
It
Yeah.
is. It is.
I love it. Okay. Is there anything that you want to say to single people, single women, people who are out there who are desiring what you have, the freedom that you have in your relationship, the love? What would you say to people who desire that but haven't quite got there yet?
Yeah. Oh, I think what's so important is to really give yourself a moment if you haven't already to feel that grief
Mm,
and to really lean into the tenderness of that. You want something so bad. You just want love. You just want to give all your love to somebody and have that be reciprocated. There's so much tenderness in that that I don't want to just like bypass, Like really
mm,
giving yourself space and time And if you can, redirecting some of that love to yourself, really feeling like, where can I love myself deeper? And just tuning into, what do I believe? You know, if you do have these underlying beliefs that you're not going to find somebody, it's okay to have fear. It's okay to have fear. It's okay to still have childhood wounds and you're like, how am I going to attract a person when I have this? It's okay to have all of that. And you can still find somebody. So really tuning into the belief that you have around it, and knowing that there's 8 billion people on this planet. There's a lot of people doing the work. Collectively, we are all on this journey together. And so if you're like looking into your heart and you're like, you know what, I want to be better, I want to find somebody, I want to have a relationship, you will have it. I believe that. Some people will say otherwise. I do believe that you will, if you have compassion and if you really believe that you're worthy. Compassion for yourself, feeling worthy. And this is your journey.
Beautifully said. Thank you for that. Yes.
Take a deep breath in, audible exhale.
Yeah. Thank you, Alina.
Thank you.
Thank y'all so much for tuning in to today's episode of That's What He Said. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I hope you're taking away something valuable that will benefit your dating life. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give this show a follow, rate, and review. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, like this video, and most importantly, comment below because I want to hear what you said. See you next time.